Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 10 brawlers you don't need to max out whatsoever in Brawl Stars right now. So of course, I tell you guys all the time the brawlers that you should be using and the brawlers you should be looking to put your resources in. But resources being so scarce at the moment, these are the brawlers that you just don't need to max out whatsoever, in terms of they're just not that great or they just have a terrible kit. So we're going to be starting off with Bo. So Bo is a brawler which a lot of new players or noob players tend to kind of go towards, because he's a pretty simple brawler to play and his mines can be very annoying for noobs to, of course, try and detonate and try not and get blown up by him, basically. But with Bo in this meta, in the competitive meta, is just terrible. The big thing about Bo that really grinds my gears is the fact that his build overall is just very lackluster. His gadgets are just so terrible. His super totem got reworked and it doesn't really do anything. His other gadget tripwise terrible as well. His star powers are okay. You know, Snare Bear can be pretty decent sometimes, but still his gears as well don't really affect him too much. I just think overall he's such an average brawler that it's just not worth putting your resources into, because of course you'd rather put it into someone else. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler you definitely don't need to max out within this meta, we have Penny. So Penny has completely fell off the face of earth. She used to be a top 5 brawler or top 10 consistently for like a year, and now I'd say she's probably like a C tier brawler. She's just okay. She's just okay across the board. Nowhere really in competitive where she really thrives. Maybe in hot zone she's okay, and that's about it really. And when you go into her build as well, I don't think anything really helps her out too much. Salty Barrel used to be so broken, and now people know how to just bait it out, and it's not really that useful anymore. Also, her star powers as well are just a bit meh. They don't really improve her kit too much, and the same go with her gears. Whenever I look at all of her gears, when I was doing the best build video yesterday, I thought to myself, well, none of them are really that needed on Penny. So overall, I don't think she benefits too much out of buying her gadget, star powers and gears. So for me, you don't really need to max her out. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler you definitely don't need to max out, it is Hank. So Hank, you guys probably know, right? I'm just bored of talking about him right now because he's just so terrible. He needs a big rework, and for now I just wouldn't even bother playing him whatsoever. I've got him maxed out at the minute myself, and he's just so painful to play. There might be the very rare occurrence where he can be useful, but still I just don't think his kit's that great overall. Anyways, like Barricade is okay, but you can definitely go without it. His other gadgets, well, you definitely don't need. Both his star powers are just really awkward. You only get a 10% extra movement speed with It's Gonna Blow, so what's really the point of that? You don't really feel the difference. And his gears as well, they're okay because he's a tank, so he might get a little bit more value out of damage and healing, but still he's just a terrible brawler. So what is the point of actually maxing him out? Of course you don't want to be, even when you like power him up to power 11, it doesn't make a difference because you'll probably still get wrecked by those power 9 brawlers. Okay, so jumping into another brawler you definitely don't need to max out, it is Doug. So again, it just goes through the same avenue as Hank, really. Like, both of these brawlers are pretty useless. Like, they can be pushable on ladder, but Doug is very frustrating to play right now. One of the worst brawlers for sure. And then when you look at his kit, I don't think really any of them improve his kit too much. Like, his gadgets are okay, they're definitely useful sometimes, but I wouldn't go out of my way to spend 1,000 coins on either of these gadgets, to be honest. And the same goes with his star power. Like, both of them are just okay. They're of course going to improve his kit overall, but they're not like big standout ones. They're not going to improve that much. And even a self-service star power, to be honest, he was very little, and you don't actually feel the impact of the healing too much. And then you can go to his gears as well. You are going to get some good value with damage. I think the damage gear is probably the most valuable thing about his gadget, well, his build overall. But yeah, Doug, he's terrible. I've spoke about it enough times as well. Doug and Hank probably just need to be deleted from the game, in all honesty, because they don't really serve a purpose right now. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler, I don't think you need to max out within this season. Might be a little bit controversial. It is Eve. So I speak about consistently how Eve is a good power league brawler, but I'm more so talking at the fact that, like, her kit overall, I don't think there's many necessities, if you get what I mean. So I think the Gotta Go gadget probably is the only one out of everything, because it's good to survive, especially against assassins. But when you take a look at her star powers, I think both of them are just a bit meh. You could definitely live without both of them. I mean, they're okay. They will help her a little bit, but for 2,000 coins, and of course, with coins being so scarce at a minute, I wouldn't recommend really getting any of them. And then when you look at her gears, I think she has the most gears in the game right now. She has 7. I'm just taking a look at them now, and you don't really need any of them. Even though quadruplets is it seems pretty good. I don't think it's necessarily needed. And take a look at all of them. Like, of course, gears are going to help you, but it is just not necessary with Eve. So I think after taking a look at her whole kit, you only really need to spend about 1,000 coins for her to be probably the best that she can be, if you get what I mean. So for me, Eve is a great brawler, but I don't think you necessarily need to max her out. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler, you definitely don't need to max out. Within this meta, we have Pearl. So Pearl is always landing in a funny spot, so I'm actually not seeing her play too much in competitive at the moment, and either in Power League. She just seems like a brawler that can definitely work, but I just think with the more aggressive the meta is, the more Pearl, of course, has to waste her, well, not really waste her ammo, waste her heat consumption, so then she deals less damage, and she's not as powerful, of course. Pearl is very powerful when she's out of combat, when she's building up that heat. So yeah, for me, she's a little bit lackluster, and she's actually probably a bit weaker than I imagined. I thought she was going to be very strong. I put her in the S tier to begin with, but I think she's probably more so towards like the B tier, a little bit of an average brawler, and of course the slow movement speed hasn't really helped her. But again, when you take a look at her kit, Overcooked recently got nerfed. It's still a decent gadget. Her other gadget is terrible, and both star powers are just terrible to me, just terrible. You definitely don't need any of them. And then you take a look at her Hypercharge. Her Hypercharge is like the worst one inside of a game. So overall, her kit is very lackluster, and she's not even that strong of a brawler. So I just feel like you don't really need to max her out. Alright guys, jumping into the next brawler, you definitely don't need to max out within this season. It is Gus. So for the longest time, for like a year now, I've been recommending to max out Gus. But for those people that haven't maxed him out already, I definitely won't put any resources into him. So he's completely fell off in this meta. I think before the Cookie Popper nerf anyways, he was like a C tier brawler, mainly just because of so many aggressive picks, so many snipers being able to out snipe him and deal a lot more damage, and he's just very vulnerable right now. And of course the Cookie Popper has pretty much killed him. He's probably like a D tier brawler, C tier brawler at the moment. His Cookie Popper is okay, but it's not needed. Same with his other gadget, and both star powers like okay, but they definitely don't buff his overall kit that much. When you take a look at his gears as well, they do okay things for him, but none of them really stand out for me a lot of the time. So as I mentioned, Gus anyways has just fallen off. So I just don't think you need to really max him out, because I've not really seen him played at all in competitive. Okay, so jumping into the next brawler, you definitely don't need to max out. It is a Daryl. Daryl has started to fall down a little bit. He's always in that underrated category where I feel like people sleep on him in certain scenarios, but I just think, truth be told, there are just a lot of better brawlers than him at the moment, especially when it comes down to the assassin category. Even brawlers like Mortis are a bit better of an assassin than him right now. So I just don't think he's really in tune with the meta at the moment, but he still can be a good last pick, especially going into certain compositions, but it's a very, very niche scenario. But anyways, going into his kit as well, I talk about time and time again how both his gadgets and star powers are just very meh. So you take a look at his gadgets, like Recall and Rotator can be okay, but it doesn't really do too much damage. It's just a nice additional 25% boost to your super if you hit one of the projectiles. Tar Barrel can be okay, but again, you can definitely live without it. And when you take a look at both his star powers as well, they're not really going to improve his kit too much overall, especially Roll and Reload. It doesn't really do too much. So for me, I just think Daryl's not in the best of spots right now, and he just doesn't really cut it right now. Okay, so jumping into the next, probably definitely don't need to max out right now. It is Griff. So Griff has been in a weird spot. I think he's definitely a little bit underrated, but at the same time, he's just not being played whatsoever. There's just a lot better brawlers that do his job better, and especially since Unbreakable Walls, I think that introduction just near enough completely killed Griff, because the main reason he was being played is to use his piggy bank gadget and just break open any lane needed to. He can counter so much with that, and now he's only really decent on certain maps and certain scenarios. So piggy bank is not really that needed on Griff at the moment, but again, that's still probably one of the only reasons why I use Griff right now when it comes down to Power League. Both his star powers are okay, but I feel like he definitely live without both of them. Like, I mean, Business Resilience is a good star power to have, but a lot of the times I don't think it's really like the difference maker, I would say. In terms of his gears as well, like, he can get some value out of the gears, but overall I don't think most of them do that much for Griff. And as I mentioned, he's just not really in the best of spots in the meta, so there's not really much point in maxing him out. Okay, so jumping into the final brawler, which I recommend not maxing out, it is Amber. So whenever I take a look at Amber's kit, I think there are a few things that really synergize well with her, but at the same time, after playing Amber, especially as a non-max player on my free-to-play account, I feel like you can definitely live without the gadget and the star powers. So 5 stars is good. It gives you that extra speed and can close the gap onto your opponents. But again, I don't think you really necessarily need it. The same with Wild Flames as well. I feel like if you get either of the star powers, you can make it kind of work, even though I don't really like her Scorching star power. I feel like I can definitely make it work, though. In terms of her gears as well, she has one of the most gears inside of a game, and I just don't think really any of them do too much. I think the reload speed gear is pretty good on her, but then when you take a look at her mythic gear and just all the other ones, they're just okay. And a lot of them are actually very counterintuitive, like speed and vision, for example, because you're literally going to destroy the bushes and then get less value out of your speed and vision gears. So yeah, a lot of things that kind of don't really sit right with me with Amber, and I just feel like when you just pick up and play Amber when you first unlock her, I just don't think you need everything, like in terms of her star powers and gadgets. But just let me know down in the comment section below whether you agree with any of these. Are there any brawlers in the game where you think they're very usable without their star powers, gadgets, any gears, etc, etc? Because you guys probably are a lot more in tune with that than me, because I am, of course, a maxed player. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.